All right. So our next at the buzzer segment, I'm joined by Ryan. Ryan, how you doing?
Brian, I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for coming on. So, Celtics laid a beatdown on the Knicks coming out of the All Star break. Just tell me about that game, how they've been playing since then, how you expect them to play down the stretch. You know, all of that. Floor is yours.
I mean, they've just really turned it on. I think this has been going on for a while. Was it like maybe even a month ago? Remember when they beat the Cavs? It's been going on for a while. It isn't always great. To me, I do kind of think about like in in theory, you want a team that is just going 100% at all times. However, as there's been a lot of discussion, the NBA season's very long and can't always be expected. And the Celtics, right, even before they won the championship, we were always a team we knew could at times fall asleep, right? A little bit. So they've just really clearly been turning it on, and it doesn't really look like anyone who has been considered like a serious threat to them can touch them. Especially being like the Knicks and the Pacers. The Knicks and the Cavaliers. I I mean, I guess there's always the Bucks. I don't think they've looked particularly great. I think Giannis and Dame have both been battling some injuries. You can't count them out because of those two, but I'm also not incredibly worried about either of them. It's very hard to see a serious threat for the Celtics right now, but right, we still have a long way to go. These teams might, they might recuperate from these losses. The Cavs did add DeAndre Hunter. I believe he's putting up points for them. And, the Knicks are going to nurse their losses and get back to it. I've always thought with them that the addition of Karl Anthony Towns, right, he's been incredible this season, but my feeling has always just been, I'd have to look it up. He's like probably 27. At this point, I think in a lot of ways, he is who he is. There's a person and a player, and he's very, very efficient shooter, very great inside scorer as well. But honestly, just a liability defensively, and he's you see like a team like the Celtics are just going to eat him alive. And when things aren't going his way and he is and he does get frustrated, it usually doesn't look very pretty, and it's not always great for team morale. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out for them. I also think, I love Mikal Bridges. I'd have to look. He hasn't quite been, I think, what exactly you would have hoped for, given, Cat coming in. That kind of takes away from, his time and usage. Additionally, OG Anunoby, good player. I think sometimes gets a little overrated being this ultimate like 3-and-D guy. I think, all of these guys really need to step up around Brunson. And even if they do, I've never been convinced that they don't fall short. Jalen Brunson's an incredible player. I just personally have always had a hard time seeing a team consistently win, become a contender with him as the best player. He's obviously an incredible player. I think he can do it, but I'd be, I'm hesitant to say like, yes, 100% you want to go all in on him as your best player. And he's like a top 10 player in the league, probably. So it's very
Right.
tough.
That kind of brings us to our next point. So there's, the old like you got to win 40 before you lose 20. Right now, only the Cavs, Celtics, and the Thunder possibly have that. Who knows how like true that is, or it's just like a thing people say. But I guess this is kind of the point of the season where true contenders and pretenders kind of show themselves. I guess who are you feeling is like a legitimate contender at this point, and then if you want to give me a hot take on a pretender or two.
I think it's really difficult to say with a lot of these teams that people consider contenders because, if for instance, like OKC, I think they lost in the playoffs last year. Let me see. I don't. know if it was the first. I just want to check if it's the first or second round. I believe it was the second.
All right, looking it up, seeing where OKC finished in the playoffs last year.
Yes.
Second round.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I just want to double check that it wasn't round. Okay, so second round. Realistically, just based on kind of like this is a rule of thumb that I try to go by. Yeah, they made it to the second round. That makes them, I would say, they are contenders, right? They have at least a top 5 player in SGA. They've got Jalen, Chet Holmgren. They've been playing very well overall. I think last night, I don't think you can read into too much. Again, one of their 3 big pieces was out. He's a pretty key player against a team like Minnesota, and it's a back-to-back coming off the All-Star break. So, it definitely shows what can happen. But personally, even when I'm not really sure how I feel about the Timberwolves overall, right? But we know from last year, the fact they have Anthony Edwards, that is a team that can compete. They were in the Western Conference Finals last year. If they're able to sneak in there, I don't see a reason they can't, beat a pretty good team. They've consistently been competing. As far as the East Coast, I struggle to say that the Cavaliers are contenders only because I don't think this group has ever gone past the first round together. I think they are still pretty ripe to get upset.
I like that. That is a hot take because they're 47-10 right now,
Yeah, and that's a regular season, right?
Yeah.
And we'll see. That's a tricky one because they are really good. I would say they may be pretenders. They're the Knicks. That's another one we have to wait and see because, again, last year they almost made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm going to say for right now, they're looking more like pretenders because it was looking like they improved. I think it's going to be tricky. I would say a sleeper contender, which maybe I'm a little partial or whatever. I maybe the Pacers.
Okay. Yeah.
I just think right now, their record's been getting better. I've always liked Tyrese Halliburton's style of play. He was horrible. He was pretty bad this year. And he's been getting better, but he's been getting steadily better. And the whole thing with him is just, the assists he's able to generate, and he's just a really good point guard, which is very valuable. And then in addition, they almost beat us last year in the ECF. They didn't almost beat us, but that was probably the most brutal sweep ever. Right? There was never it was. I remember when it was done, you're just like, oh, thank God. It was a very stressful 4 games. You were
right.
Of what's going on, and that was all Andrew and Tyrese Halliburton was out, right?
Yeah.
And while it's incredible, I think it also speaks to kind of when you have a really good playmaker like that, sometimes when the team's out, it can still function really well without him, right? Because under his helm, these guys know what to do. And you have a really good second, like Andrew Nembhard, most of the time he's probably, I'd have to look at their stats. He's probably 3rd or 4th on the list in a lot of ways, but he's clearly shown you can step up and you can run the offense through him when needed. And that's an incredible asset. I think he's only in his 3rd year. And they have some guys that work well with them. They have Siakam, Miles Turner. With Siakam there, he doesn't have to do as much, and he can kind of just do his rim protection, stretch the floor. I'm not convinced on the Pacers. It's more just they are a team right now. I would be more worried about randomly upsetting us than the other 2. That could definitely change, right? And again, they haven't been consistent this year, so we'll have to wait and see.
All right, last question for this segment. Detroit Pistons, 32-26, winners of 7 straight. They've really turned it around this season. How do you feel about them? Are they contenders, pretenders, just a fun team? What do you think?
Um, I don't think they're contenders,
No.
but maybe in the sense of like, can they make the playoffs and like get started on their run like the Magic did last year? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Because I think we had talked about that draft that Kate Cunningham was in. I think maybe a somewhat unpopular opinion. You know, most people like if they redraft that, they say you got to take Evan Mobley. I probably disagree. I think specifically for the Pistons, they made the right pick in Cade Cunningham. You know, he was out, but it's just to have like a big point guard that can run your offense through like that is super invaluable. And they've done a really good job of surrounding him with, you know, kind of all of these different veteran players that no one else really wanted, that are pretty useful in their roles, right? Like they got Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr., Mikal Beasley, who like a lot of people get very sick of, you know, his shooting volume. But these guys have all been pretty invaluable this season on that team, you know, and it kind of speaks how ready Cade was. And then, right, they have a bunch of exciting young guys like Jalen Duran is just like, you know, he's got his flaws, but he's a fucking tank. Then they have Asar Thompson, very fun. Yeah, I think it's pretty crazy. You know, it could go off the hinges anytime, maybe. But I think if you even look, like most people 2 years ago, it was like, is it the Pistons' time or the Magic's time? I was kind of a Magic guy. I felt more like the Magic, but I think you could have made a case for either. And so, yeah, they've made the moves, and you know, Cade seems to finally progressing on the track he should be. And yeah, I was looking at that yesterday. I think it would be very cool if they make the top 6. I would love it. It's just, that's pretty fun, you know?
Oh yeah. I think I saw the stat over the last 3 seasons, they won 31 games and they've won like 32 this year. That's fun. Like
well, that's what
if I'm a Pistons fan, I'm so excited right now.
Well, yeah, that's why they fired and are still paying Ty Lue last year, right? Because he was just kind of like, hey, this team is going to suck and we're going to continue to suck and we're going to tank the draft picks. And obviously management, right, felt very different. They're like, no, we think we're
some guys. Yeah.
And you know, sure enough, they kind of went an opposite way. Instead of running all these young guys, it getting really ugly. And it's working pretty well for them so far, I'd say. The other team we could talk about in the East that I forgot was the Magic. I honestly did kind of think they would end up being a contender. We'll say for now, I don't even know that they would be pretenders, just because not to any fault of their own, just because Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero have both been injured a lot, right? I think you're also going to run into this when your 2 best players are like these 6'10", 6'11" guys running with these guard skills. You know, that can definitely happen. But yeah, I think they're still right. Did they make it to the second round last year as well? I'm pretty sure they did. I believe they beat the Cavs in the first round. But regardless, right? So that's a very good sign for them. I think they would have been I mean, there's still a lot of kinks they got to work out, but I think they would have been a good spot to, you know, win a series again. But you know, we'll have to see if anything like that would happen. Not that anyone considered them in the contending, but I did think at least in the regular season they were going to make more of a splash, and injuries have hurt them.
No, definitely. All right. Anything else you want to add before we get on out of here?
No, bro. I think that's about all I got.
All right. And where can we find you online?
You can find me on here mostly. Also check out the Wicked Good Sports blog. I'm going to eventually try to do maybe a top 25 players in the NBA list at some point. You know, so maybe look out for that. Read Brian's stuff as well.
I think it's trying to put out a lot there. So if you're so inclined, please check that out. Also writing for dolphinstalk.com about my Dolphins. Did a blog about should they trade for Matthew Stafford. For all you Tua haters out there, I gave you a little something to think about. So thank you so much for your time, Ryan.
Oh, thank you, Brian.
We'll see you all in the next one.